We are down to our final two on our Pro Bowl list. Let's do it.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's good, everybody? Matt Derry with you. It is another installment of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On a Monday, July 15th into Tuesday, July 16th. Thanks for making us your first listen, checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. Shout out to our everydayers who are either watching us on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel or listening, again, wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate you very, very much. We have an everydayer today. That is our call of the day a little bit later on in the show. Locked On Lions today brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Looking for tickets? Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. You can follow us on Twitter at Derry Speaks, at Locked On Lions, Matt Derry Facebook fan page, and as always, subscribe. Watch us for free on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Little secret here, folks. Guess what? Hope some of you got that. We are just a week and 1 day away from the entire team reporting to Allen Park and 222 RWD for training camp. Training camp next week. The Lions tomorrow, I think it's at 10 a.m. or noon, maybe 10 a.m., are putting more training camp tickets out for sale on their website. We're doing this thing. We're getting closer to football. I got 5 shows this week. Tomorrow, Dalton Wasserman from Pro Football Focus. We've never had Dalton on. New guest from PFF. We're going to have him on the show. Talk a little bit about some of the new faces on the Lions and some of the rookies, as well as he's a college football analyst for PFF. So that should be good. Working on some other guests for next week as we get close to training camp. So a lot to do, a lot to get into right here on Locked On Lions. Thanks for checking us out. Tell your friends about us as we are back and in a good groove here on the podcast. All right. Some of you did send in your submissions on our SpeakPipe, which is our voicemail, speakpipe.com/Derry podcast page. We've got a call of the day today that we're going to play for you, and we appreciate all of you for participating. Got to get into the first-time Pro Bowl list. We are now down to our final 2. Calvin Johnson got some pretty big news today, which is very exciting. And also Jared Goff cracking a couple of top 10s on some lists. We'll get into that today right here on Locked On Lions. All right, we've talked about it. We do this every summer. First-time Lion Pro Bowlers. Who this season could be a Pro Bowler for the first time on the Detroit Lions? Such players as Jared Goff, Penei Sewell, Sam Laporta, Aiden Hutchinson, Jalen Reeves-Maybin, Kevin Zeitler, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Frank Ragnow are all ineligible because they've been Pro Bowlers before. We're looking for the guys who we think, or I think, have a chance to crack the Pro Bowl roster this year for the first time. We do a top 5. We go 5 least to number 1 being the best chance. At number 5, we had Terrion Arnold, the rookie cornerback from Alabama. Number 4, DJ Reader, big D tackle that the Lions picked up in free agency from Cincinnati. Taylor Decker came in last week at number 3. We've talked about Taylor and how many years he's kind of been solid, but never has been spectacular. Has never made the Pro Bowl. It's also tough when they don't carry a lot of tackles on that Pro Bowl roster. And there's guys like Trent Williams and Lane Johnson, even Penei Sewell, that are in his way. Today we get down to number 2. I'm already getting texts from some of my everydayers, including my guy Michael Spaff, who guessed right on who number 1 is. But number 2 on the list is Alim McNeill, heading into year 4 here as a Detroit Lion. I think Alim McNeill has a great chance of making the Pro Bowl because now he's playing next to DJ Reader. He's gotten better every year. Aaron Donald is retired. There's an open spot there, and I think Alim McNeill could be a player that this season just really steps up, really gets better, and could be named to the Pro Bowl. Now, again, Jahmyr Gibbs last year wasn't named to the Pro Bowl right away. He was an alternate, got in, so he's not on the list. So anything counts. But you look at what Alim McNeill has done every year. He's added moves. Last year, dropped a ton of weight and was able to get to the quarterback a little bit more. Was able to get around some of these offensive linemen and add to his sack total and add to his pressures and his hurries. And, you want to talk about a guy that just seemingly week in and week out is always there for his teammates, is always disruptive. And he hasn't exactly played next to a lot of great players along the interior of that defensive line. Quinton Bohanna, Benito Jones, these are guys that have been rotating next to him. Now, with the addition of DJ Reader, who is a stud in Cincinnati and is getting over $13 million a year the next 2 years from Brad Holmes and the Lions, this should help Alim McNeill even more take that next step. He's underrated nationally. He's not talked about a ton, but I really think Alim McNeill can play. And I think this was a no-brainer having him in the top 2 as a guy that maybe cracks into the mix as a Pro Bowl defensive tackle, right? The Lions defense keeps improving. It's gotten better. All right. There's been days, we know this, especially in the second half of the NFC Championship game and others where there needs to be more, especially up front. But, Aiden Hutchinson, DJ Reader, Alim McNeill, and if healthy, Marcus Davenport would be the best front four that this team has had since what? We got to go back to 2014 with Sue and Nick Fairley and that crew? Probably. So you add Davenport, you add Reader. That's going to make Hutchinson better, but that's really going to make Alim McNeill better. I loved how he looked last year. He just, I was concerned a little bit at the start of the year when there were the reports about training camp and how much weight he lost, that he just would not be that same guy that could get to the quarterback, that could run stuff. Not really get to the quarterback, but kind of bully people and do his thing. And it was the opposite. Alim McNeill is just a really good football player. And I think a guy that can get the nod and become a Pro Bowler this year. So I've got him number 2 on my list. That leaves number 1 for tomorrow, or maybe Wednesday. I think we'll do number 1 on Wednesday because we're going to have Dalton on tomorrow from PFF. But I'm excited. I'm excited about this defense. I'm excited to see the improvement. Fans have gotten on Aaron Glenn the last few years. Heck, I got on Aaron Glenn, especially early in last season. But players have developed and gotten better under Aaron Glenn. We've talked about Aiden Hutchinson's development. We've seen the linebackers get better. Alex Anzalone and his improvement. Derek Barnes got better last year. Secondary players, especially the safeties, have improved. And, some of you, and I've seen some of the comments on YouTube, are a little bit surprised. What about Kirby Joseph and all that not making this list? I think Kirby's a good player. He's coming back from injury. But that's a good thing, is that we have these arguments, because that means that there's talent to discuss. There are players that we can actually talk about. So that excites me. But number 2 on the list, Alim McNeill, also entering a contract year. Lions have not re-upped him or extended him yet. They want to. What if they go into this season and he hasn't been re-upped, hasn't gotten a new deal? He's going to play for some serious money this offseason or this season. So I'm excited to see what the big fella, number 54, has in store this year for the Lions. All right, coming up next, Calvin Johnson in the news. This one threw me for a little bit of a loop today. Not hugely stunned, but very, very cool accolades for Calvin. We will get into that coming up next here on a Monday edition of Locked On Lions. And as we mentioned before, Locked On Lions brought to you by the Gametime app. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. They got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. All of a sudden, your Detroit Tigers are red hot. They've won 8 of 10. Just knocked off the Dodgers 2 out of 3. Thanks, Dave Roberts. Dave Roberts is the man with his handling his bullpen, huh? But regardless, Tigers won those games, And the crowds were enormous this past weekend to see Shohei Ohtani. But who's kidding who? You know, you guys were all there to see Justin Henry Malloy. Come on now. At least that's what the Tiger Brass will tell you and their PR people. But regardless, get your Tiger tickets. They're starting to get hot on the Gametime app. Last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. All right. I got tickets to see the Tigers beat my Guardians on Monday, and I got them at Gametime. And it's easy. Just some double clicks on your phone, and it's awesome. You're right there. And that view from your seat is great. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Back on Locked On Lions, Monday edition, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Do not forget about the Locked On Detroit Sports page on YouTube. Locked On Detroit Sports includes our buddy Jake Riepma that does the postcasts. Jake's going to get some days off here. Good for Jake. But he usually is on after every Tigers game, Wings, Pistons, and he'll be doing postcasts after Lions games. Yes, I will still have my reaction after games, but the postcast comes on right after the game. Check out Locked On Detroit Sports on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, so today I just happened to see this. Calvin Johnson held his charity golf outing locally today. I'm not even sure where Calvin had it, but regardless, the former Lion great and wide receiver was certainly there, and they were raising money for charities and that Calvin is associated with. Calvin, I think, has his own charity, but regardless, today, when they were introducing him, former Lion great and Lions Hall of Famer and Pride of Detroit, Pride of the Lion. No, they call it Pride, not Pride of Detroit. We love prideofdetroit.com, but Pride of the Lions member Lomas Brown, who got inducted last year at the Monday night game against the Raiders. I was there and just got to see that. Lomas Brown was there with the Lions cap man and VP Mike Disner. And they introduced Calvin, and Disner got on the mic and said, two things that are not up in the rafters that we need. Number one is the Super Bowl banner, which he's right. And number two is the number 81 being honored and utilized in the Pride of the Lions. Calvin Johnson announced today going into the Lions Ring of Honor, and he will be celebrated and give his speech at Monday night game against the Seattle Seahawks on Monday, September the 30th. Number one, long overdue. Very, very cool. Great job by the Lions to mend their relationship with Calvin. And apparently, and I was big on, look, I used to talk about this all the time, and a lot of you got mad at me, but this all started when Calvin Johnson retired and Rod Wood told him, asked him if he was going to pay back his bonus. And that was not a good move by 222. Not at all. That ticked Calvin off. So Calvin was kind of done with the organization years ago. But Mike Disner, Sheila, and others have mended that relationship. And now Calvin is back. He's a part of the organization. He shows up at practices. He's been around the facility. He's at games. And now, thank you to Disner and others, they're honoring him with Pride of the Lions. So I think that's awesome. Monday night games can be rocking to begin with in week 4, but now you got fans that are going to want to stick around at halftime for Calvin to get his due. And, this is what this organization has done recently. They've cleaned up all the crap that went on forever. Barry Sanders being slighted, Calvin getting slighted, all the money stuff. No, now everybody's welcome. Everybody's into it. Everybody's getting along. And so, yes, Calvin Johnson is one of the greatest of all time, not just Lions, but wide receivers of all time. Yes, he didn't win a playoff game. Yes, all that stuff. But bottom line is Lions are doing this right. So they announced it to him today, surprised him at his golf outing. And so September 30th, if you are going to the Monday night game against Seattle, don't go to the concession stand or the bathroom at halftime. Calvin's going to be speaking, getting his blue jacket, and I think that's awesome. It's well-deserved. Both sides are happy again, and that's what we want around here. That's what the organization wants. You want to be celebrating your players. You don't want any animosity. All right. And so credit to the organization for mending this fence. And now Calvin is going to be inducted. The pride of the Lions. I think it was 2 years ago with Spielman. And then this past year, Lomas Brown. Lions did a really cool video for Spielman because he was voicing the video and he voiced himself getting in and he was stunned. And then they had like a behind the scenes camera. It was really cool. Lomas, of course, last year he was on the radio and Rod Wood told him live and they filmed that. This was cool today at his golf outing. He got that award and got that recognition. So very, very cool. Good job, Lions. And Calvin will be recognized coming up Monday night, September 30th at halftime of the Lions Seahawks game. All right. Jared Goff, we've talked about this, has been dissed hard before by people. So this is not anything that we haven't seen before, but he's getting some recognition on the positive side today. ESPN is doing their top 10 players at each position list. Today they did quarterback. And for the first time since 2020, when they started doing this list, Jared Goff has cracked the top 10. He is number 9 on the list. Dak Prescott comes in at number 10. And Goff is ahead of some guys that are ahead of him on other lists. On the Locked On Draft Dudes podcast, those guys did their list the other day, and they had Kirk Cousins at number 8 ahead of Jared Goff, who was number 9. On the ESPN list, Goff comes in at number 9 ahead of Dak Prescott. Who else did he beat out? Jordan Love did not make the top 10. Jalen Hurts did not make the top 10. Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, and Kirk Cousins. So Goff gets in at number 9. He was only an honorable mention. This is from Pride of Detroit. He was only an honorable mention a single time in the previous 4 years. But an anonymous NFL coordinator said, quote, he's the best in the NFL throwing into zone coverage windows. I've shown young quarterbacks tape of him and how he throws with anticipation. Another NFL executive said in the article, he used to seem nervous in the pocket, but now he's cool in there. I don't think he has that much pressure on him like he did in Los Angeles. Detroit has embraced him, and he's responded. Love this. Love this. Goff finished 2nd in passing yards, 4th in passing touchdowns last year, 9th in passer rating, 11th in QBR. So he makes the list at number 9. He's now officially a top 10 quarterback because ESPN says so. It's about time. Last week we talked about, and this is why we got to balance this out. Jeff Schwartz last week said the Lions, what was his quote? You are not winning a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. Well, he's the 9th best quarterback in the league, according to NFL executives and his peers as a part of this ESPN rankings. They go to the peers. They go to the players. They poll the coaches, and they poll executives. His peers think he's top 10. His peers think he's better than Dak Prescott, who was number 10. All right. So stop with this stuff about, he's not, can't win a Super Bowl with him. Jared Goff is ready to take that next step with this organization. So I'm excited. I think this is a no-brainer for me, for Jared Goff being in the top 10. I just mentioned the numbers that he's been putting up. I just talked about the winning that he's done. He has led this team. Sure, Ben Johnson's been there. Sure, maybe it is partly the system. But you got to make those throws. You got to feel the pressure and find your teammates. He's made Amon-Ra St. Brown better. He's made Sam Laporta better. I think this year he's going to make Jameson Williams better. I truly believe that. And so for Jared Goff to get that kind of recognition, it's the usual suspects, Mahomes and Allen, those guys. But Jared Goff at number 9 is exactly the right spot. And again, I want to double check this list, but yes, NFL executives, coaches, and scouts vote on this. They are polled by ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, who wrote the story. So, Trevor Sikkema, God bless him. We love Trevor. Trevor had him ranked 16th on PFF, and I know they have different rankings and everything else, but this comes from the people that really know. And that is the executives, the players, and the scouts. So props to Jared Goff for getting some big time recognition from his peers. All right, coming up next, we promised it, our call of the day with a very good question from one of our everydayers. We will do that next here on Locked On Lions. And Locked On Lions today is proudly brought to you by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/lockedon and get on your way to being your best self. All right. What are you thinking about right now? You got stuff going on in your mind. You're not feeling good. Maybe you just know you got to talk to somebody. All right. And maybe you just need to know that it is time to sit down with somebody and talk. And if it's somebody that is neutral, that's even better, right? Because therapy can help you focus on what you want instead of what others have, so you can start living your best life. All right. It might look like all these people around you have it all great. You see it all on Instagram, but in reality, they probably don't. If you're feeling that same way and you're a little bit jealous of something that's going on around you, you're looking to talk to a therapist, try BetterHelp. Stop comparing with others and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. Seriously, if you think about starting up therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Do it up. BetterHelp.com/lockedon. You'll get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, so for the last couple of weeks, many of you have sent in voicemails and submissions to our SpeakPipe voicemail, which we appreciate. Go to speakpipe.com/dairy podcast page and put your submission in and ask me a question or talk about whatever with the Lions. We had like an 8-year-old kid last week. It was absolutely fantastic. All right, so I got today's submission, and it comes from overseas. Overseas. This is exciting. Across the pond. Today's submission, an everydayer. Here it is, folks. Simon Platford. Take it away.
Hi, Matt. Simon from the UK here. Everyday listener. Really enjoy the show. Only got into football about 5 years ago, so really appreciate the likes of yourself coming on every day and informing me more and more about the game. Really big Lions fan. A point that I'd like to make is about Levi Onwuzurike. I think it was last Wednesday's podcast, you mentioned the fact that you think he's not delivered, which I think due to the big injury he's had and having to recover, that's pretty understandable. However, I think this season Levi's going to have a real devastating year and is going to be absolutely awesome in our defence. So I wondered if you thought the same. Do you think he's going to have an awesome year? Or do you think he is a bust now? Do you think he's had his chance? And unfortunately, his time is up. According to reports I've read, he's put on 15 pounds. His back can now take the weight, and he's looking like an absolute beast in OTAs. I think Dan Campbell mentioned him twice. Just wondered your thoughts are on Levi O. Thanks, Matt, for everything you do, and keep up the great work. Cheers.
All right, there it is. Simon Platford over in England. Thank you, Simon, for the submission and a great question about Levi Onwuzurike. Look, here's the thing. Levi's entering a contract year 4, just like Alim McNeill is. If Levi Onwuzurike was a 6th-round pick that they took a flyer on because his back was bad, I don't think we'd say anything. I think we'd be saying, yeah, he's played 26 games. He's been okay, whatever. But the problem is that he sat out the entire season 2 years ago. Last year, he played in 10 games. And as a rookie in 16 games, he's been okay when he's been out there. But nothing devastating. What, 2 sacks? Couple tackles for a loss. This is not a guy that's made a high impact. And the Lions went out and drafted Broderick Martin 2 years ago, signed DJ Reader this year, went out and got Matthew Betts from the CFL, who could play both inside and outside. They've got Josh Paschal, who was a pretty high draft pick after Onwuzurike was here. They've got Kaminsky back. But yes, Levi has added some muscle. Yes, he's in the best shape of his career. We've heard all these things. Sounds like Miguel Cabrera. But this is it. This is it. Would I use the term, like Simon said, devastating? I don't know if he's going to be devastating this year, but he could be a really big contributor. Brad Holmes has hit on so many draft picks. How many? Brad Holmes is what, drafted 30 players? How many would you call a bust? Maybe one, and it's him because he was a second rounder. He's had 2 healthy seasons, and you don't really know he's out there. I remember going back and watching the NFC Championship game, and he played. He was out there. I think he had a tackle. It's almost like he has one tackle or a TFL or an unassisted tackle, and you go, all right, Onwuzurike. And then you never hear from him again. Whereas Alim McNeill, multiple plays, he's disruptive. Multiple times, he's pushing people back, helping the linebackers make plays. I hope for a big year for him. I'm rooting for him. He's been through a lot with the back injuries and everything else. And yes, if he's a factor this year, boy, that's going to help the defense in a massive way. I'm just not relying on it. Bust, it's close. Based on how great Brad Holmes has done drafting. This is the one guy, especially in round 2, that just hasn't made a big impact. So hopefully for Simon and the Lion fans, yes, more for Levi Onwuzurike. That is for sure. All right, more. I'm getting tons of submissions on the Speak Pipe. Thank you. We'll do another call of the day on Wednesday. We'll do them the rest of the week. Not tomorrow because we got Dalton Wasserman from PFF tomorrow. Some of our everydayers that are out there have submitted. I'm working all of you in. Appreciate all of you checking us out. Again, Dalton Wasserman tomorrow from PFF. And a week from today, special surprise guest is coming back on the pod with an announcement. We will do that next Monday. But this has been Locked On Lions, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Back again tomorrow.